Tonight, the hidden element of your finances everybody needs to take control of. It impacts mortgages, credit cards, loans, gas and electricity, car insurance, mobiles and more. It's your credit file.
We are here at Lord's Cricket Ground to help run up your credit score, to find out what they know about you, how to avoid rejection and boost acceptance.
Plus, are you one of 800,000 people paying too much for prescriptions?
And your rights if your flight is cancelled.
Your credit file is your money CV, revealing your achievements and your dirty little secrets. Mismanaged, it can kill your financial ambitions. Played right, it can open you up to a world of choice and competition. I'm going to start with a myth-busting session of the Royal Bath & West show. Credit scoring. You've got a number, haven't you?
Yeah.
And do you know what that number means? Yes, what?
It means you get accepted.
No. It doesn't actually mean very much at all. Yes, many people think your credit score tells lenders whether to lend to you, but it's not that simple. So many people get in touch with me and they're like, "Dear Martin, I'd like to write to you because I have a credit score that's absolutely perfect. I have recently, though, been rejected for credit, and I do not understand how this works. Why have they rejected me for credit?" Do you know why? Number one, every company scores you differently based on its own wish list of what is a perfect customer. You might be applying for a bank account. They might really want to cross-sell you a mortgage if you get the bank account, so they're seeing whether you're profitable for them. Number two, the score that you get at the credit reference agency is a loose indication of whether you are a good or bad risk, because there's one factor they don't include, and it is the single most important factor: your income. To explain this, I want to show you that credit scoring is actually pretty intuitive. It's common sense. Will you come and play with me, sir?
I'll play with you.
What's your name?
Nick.
Nick, you're in the pub. A long-term friend of yours comes up, and this fella always forgets his wallet because he's useless. And he says, "Can you lend me 20 quid and I'll buy you a pint tomorrow and give you the money back?" And he's done this 122 times before.
Yep.
And he always pays you back the next day. Would you lend him the money?
Yes.
That's how credit scoring works. They look at your credit history. If you want to borrow, you've got a good credit history, you look likely to repay. Next guy walks up to you in the pub.
Yep.
Forgot my wallet again, and he always does this. "Can you lend 20 quid? I'll give you back tomorrow and I'll buy you a pint." Now, he's done this lots of times before, and most times he always forgets, he never repays. Would you lend it to him?
Not so sure, no.
No, he's got a bad credit score. I know I'm doing country wisdom, we're in the right place for doing it. It is country wisdom how credit scoring works. They try and predict your future behaviour from the past. Number three, somebody comes up to you, looks very smart, quite handsome, wasn't me. You've never met them before,
Yep.
And they say, "Look, I'm really sorry, I've lost my wallet. I'm a really nice guy. I promise you, I'll give you the money back tomorrow and I'll buy you a pint." You ask around, nobody you know has ever heard of this person. Would you lend them the money?
Probably not.
No. Another problem is that they don't have enough data on you to decide whether you're a good or bad risk. So someone who's never borrowed will often get rejected. Now for that income point, which lenders get from your application form and especially affects mortgages and larger loans. I'm a very good friend of yours. You've lent me money in the past, I've always repaid it. I'm afraid I need £1,000. However, I lost my job last week and I've got no income. Would you lend me the £1,000?
No.
Why not?
You haven't got that certainty looking forward.
Because I don't have the income.
Yes.
You may have a perfect credit score that shows you have always repaid in the past. But if you don't have the income, they're not going to lend you the money. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody.
You did very well.
You did.
Oh, now, Martin, I find this topic fascinating. I've got lots of questions for
Okay.
you. The first one being, is what's the best way to check your credit file?
There are three credit reference agencies, the big two, Experian and Equifax, and also Call Credit. And you've got a statutory right to check your file for £2. But these days, there's a much easier way to do it for free. And it's not by signing up for expensive credit monitoring services and using their free trial. Look, quite simply, Call Credit, just go to the Noddle website. Equifax, go to ClearScore, and I've got to declare an interest. For Experian, you go to mymoneysavingexpert.com Credit Club. All of those give you your credit file for free and your credit score for free.
Now, loads of people have got in contact and said things like, You know, I've cancelled my credit card, my credit score has gone down. Should I be worried?
No, your credit score is just a loose indication of what a typical lender would think. Actually, cancelling a credit card, some lenders think is good because you've got less available credit. Other lenders think it's bad because you haven't got a history of longevity. The credit score you get is not a tool lenders use, it's just a consumer tool to give you a rough indication of what lenders think. Don't worry too much about a few points here or there.
Right, so that's credit scores, but what about credit files? How often should you be checking them? Because that has all your information on.
This is the big one. I would check at least once a year using one of the big agencies, preferably all three agencies, and I'd certainly check if you've been rejected. Because if you've been rejected because of an error, well, if you continue to apply, you could then, even if you fix the error, still be rejected because of all the applications. It's a vicious circle. Avoid that.
OK, so what should you be checking for?
Everything, 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 line by line. Here's a story. Once did a money makeover for a show on a woman who was rejected for a mortgage. We wanted to find out why. Turned out she had an old mobile phone she wasn't using. It was still technically active. It was registered to her old address. And that inconsistency triggered a fraud score rejection. So going to the old mobile phone company and saying, can you update the address, fixed it.
OK, quickly, you mentioned about affordability scores. How can you check those?
Well, there are ways to check them, but the truth is it's about the interaction of your affordability and your credit score. And really that dictates whether you're accepted or not. So what you want to know is, will I be accepted? And there is a way to really test your overall financial clout and find out whether you're likely to get top deals without damaging your future chances.
I'm looking at buying a car, not a new car, second-hand car. So I'm just thinking about getting a loan.
Gary and Lucy had budgeted for a loan that was needed and affordable. So I put them onto an online eligibility calculator that uses a soft search. Almost every time you apply for credit, it leaves a search on your credit file. Lots of searches, especially in a small space of time, are detrimental to your ability to gain credit in future. So I'm always very allergic to willy-nilly applications, more so because we live in this thing called a rate for risk world. So often the rate that you get depends on your credit file, so the only way to find out what rate you will get is by applying, but by applying that marks your credit file that gives you a worse credit file in future.
Downward spiral.
Yeah, exactly. Vicious circle. Eligibility calculators access your credit data via a soft search. And then, like lenders, they ask for your income and personal details. It then uses this to show your acceptance chances for each product. A soft search goes on your credit file. So if you check your credit file, you would see it, but lenders won't. Right. Same's true if you check your credit file. That goes on your credit file, but lenders can't see it. So it doesn't affect your creditworthiness. Press the magic button. Oh, well, there we go.
Wow, 95%.
So 95%.
Amazing.
Good odds. And it's not just loans you can do this for. It works for all types of credit cards too, including those that cut the cost of existing debt.
We showed how quick and easy that is in our live show a fortnight ago.
I pay £30 a month in interest on my credit card. What's the best thing to do?
You need to do a balance transfer. Would you do one now?
Yeah.
Isha, what I'd like you to do is get her onto an eligibility calculator. Has anybody else got existing debts on credit cards? Yes? Would you like to do a balance transfer as well? Yes. Another one for you, Isha. This lady's across.
She's left her bag.
She's left her bag. Even better way to save money. Look after your purse. Don't worry. I gave it back in the ad break. A balance transfer, of course, is when you get a new card and it pays off debts on old cards for you, so you owe the new card the money, but at a cheaper rate of interest.
Pamela had a good credit score, so she had a big choice.
At 95% chance, I'd go for the fee-free card, 29 months, 0%. Bingo. Easy way to save lots of money.
But Kate's credit score wasn't quite as strong.
Her top result was a poor credit card. So you've got 100% of the Capital One card, but that's only a 6 months 0%, so you definitely could get that. How long do you think you'd need to repay the debt?
Probably a couple of years.
If you can pay it within 2 years, I'd always look for a no-fee card, and just scrolling down the list, oh, you've only got 50% chance of that. I would, just for safety, go back to the top with one of these 38 months 0% card, 2.49% fee. OK, so you're going to pay a small fee, but compared to what you've been paying for years, the saving is still going to be around 350 quid on that one.
We packed a lot into that show, didn't we?
We did. I tell you what I get looking at that. Kate is proof that credit scoring isn't just about will you be accepted or not, but it can actually dictate your product choice. And this goes back to those people who say, I've got a perfect credit score, why am I being rejected? Because each lender scores you differently.
Well, Martin, why don't you take us through right now what they know about you on your credit file?
Well, I've got my board to do just that. First thing, electoral roll information. If you're not on it, often it'll kibosh applications. You've got all the public records, the bad stuff about debt, CCJs or the equivalent in Scotland. Now, they stay on your file for 6 years. So if they're about to wipe, wait to apply until it's gone. Then you've got searches. That's applications you've made. They only stay on your file for 1 year, but still spread them out. Don't do too many in a short space of time. Linked data. Have you got a joint bank account or mortgage? If you do, then the person you're joint with, their file can be looked at when you're being assessed. So don't get a joint product with someone who's got a bad credit history. Then all the stuff you'd expect, your account data. So all the credit products and whether you're paying them in time, but also things like gas and electricity direct debits, monthly mobile phones, monthly car insurance. They're loan products too. They go on your file. And they've just started in some areas putting renting on. May not sound too good, but actually it means if you pay your rent on time, it'll boost your credit file. And then here's what they don't know about you. Just take a look through this. There's the stuff we've mentioned already, but student loans, for example, are not on your credit file. Doesn't mean they can't ask about it, but it actually doesn't tend to be seen as a loan product. It just reduces your affordability. Who you're married to, who you live with, not on your file unless you've got a joint product. So there's a lot of things here that you can see that aren't on your file that many people think are.
Now, Martin, loads of people have been getting in touch
Yep.
to say, what do you do if there's an error on your file?
Well, first of all, you contact the company who the error's with directly, you know, whoever's put it on, and say, can you get rid of it? If they say no or they dispute it, then you write to the credit reference agency asking to put a notice of correction on, which is where you briefly explain why you think it shouldn't be there. That can slow applications down, but it can also help you get accepted. And at the same time, you then appeal to the Financial Ombudsman Service and ask it to get rid of that default if it shouldn't be there.
We'll be telling you how you can boost your credit score in the second half.
If you live in Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland, you don't pay for NHS prescriptions. But most adults living in England pay £8.60 a time. And if you need a lot of them, it can really add up. But there is a little-known way to cut the cost. It's called prepay certificates. And it works like this. You can buy a 3-month one for £29.10p or a 1-year one for £104. Once you do it, you don't pay any more for all the prescriptions you use within that time. So let's do some maths. 4 prescriptions, £4, £8.60, it's £34.40p. You can see it's a saving. 13 prescriptions is £111.80p. Again, a saving. So 4 in 3 months saves you. 13 in a year saves you. In other words, if you'll use just over 1 prescription a month, these add up. But there's another trick too, because with these certificates, you could go back in time. You can backdate the start of your certificate up to a month. Then, that means if you paid for any prescriptions in the last month, you can reclaim the cost. A very nifty little trick there. So for those who are going to use a lot of prescriptions, these can be a big saver. To get it, you can go to the NHS website, call them up, or some pharmacies have the form you can fill in right there.
I have to admit, I've never heard of this.
Actually, I've just had the results of a Freedom of Information request that shows 800,000 people in England would have been better off on those certificates but pay for their prescriptions instead. And if you think about it, 25 prescriptions in a year, you could save over £100. So this is real money.
Still to come, how to boost your credit score and why it could get you dancing.
But first,
Someone's looking pleased with themselves.
After we finish filming today, I am going on holiday.
Haven't you been watching the news?
What?
There is a massive volcanic ash cloud. I don't think you're going anywhere. Flights have been cancelled.
oh, that's torn it.
Cancel my flight!
And today's money teaser from the incredible Salt. If your flight gets cancelled just before you travel because of a natural event, under EU flight rules, what are you entitled to? A refund or alternative flight? A refund or alternative flight and compensation? Or nothing? It wasn't the airline's fault.
No! No! No!
Let us know now what you think the answer is. to the money teaser.
Yes, cancel my flight.
What an incredible sulk. If your flight gets cancelled just before you travel because of a natural event, under EU flight rules, what are you entitled to? And the answer is...
Refund or alternative flight.
Listen, don't worry. You can go to Spain another time.
Spain? I was going to New York.
Oh, you should have said flights to New York are fine. Enjoy. Oh, calm down. But it looks like you've been working out.
Well, thank you very much.
Right, back to business. OK, so what you're saying is you're entitled to a refund, but I thought you were also entitled to compensation.
This is all about EU Regulation 261/2004 that governs the rules for EU flights.
But what counts as an EU flight?
It's any flight leaving an EU airport, including the UK obviously, or any flight arriving at an EU airport, but then it must be an EU carrier. So UK to New York always counts. New York to UK only counts if you're on British Airways or KLM or another EU carrier.
Ah, OK, understood. But back to cancellation rules.
Here's the rules. If they cancel and it isn't their fault, which a volcano clearly isn't, by the way, there isn't a volcano out there, that's just for the fun, then you don't get the compensation. You just get the choice of a refund or the first available alternative flight. If it is their fault, such as they haven't done proper maintenance on their plane and they had to cancel or they didn't have the staff to fly it, then you also get compensation. The amount of compensation you get depends on how late you would have arrived. That's even if you choose to get just a refund, not an alternative flight, how late the alternative flight would have arrived. And it's between £100 and £500 per person, depending on the scenario.
So how do you go about claiming it?
Pretty easy to do. You write to the airline. If they reject you, there's always an appeal route, or usually an appeal route. But there's lots of free help and free tools online to do this for you, just as with flight delay compensation, which I've talked about many times before.
OK, back to credit scoring.
Martin, I'd like you to meet Stuart.
Hello, Stuart.
Sure.
Nice to meet you.
I'm wondering how I can boost my credit score. I'm registered disabled.
Stuart says his low credit score means he can only have a basic bank account with no overdraft facility.
What's the purpose? What do you want your credit score to be boosted for?
I go abroad quite a lot.
Stuart's looking for a specialist overseas credit card.
Not to borrow on, but because done right, it's the cheapest way to spend abroad. He just wants to be able to do what other people can do.
I tried to get one and they basically laughed me out of the branch.
Aqua Reward?
I did the eligibility test and it gave me 10% chance of getting an Aqua one and 0% of everything else. So
you didn't apply for Aqua?
No.
So that's actually really interesting, because it wasn't where I was thinking of going, but actually there's an interesting conversation to be had on that.
Stuart thought only a 10% chance effectively meant rejection, and rejection would make his credit score even worse.
But actually he's missing out on quite a big opportunity, because the Aqua card is a credit rebuild card. So first of all, do you have any credit cards?
No.
One of the best ways to boost your credit score is to get a credit card, perversely.
Yeah.
So how do you get a credit card? You get a poor credit card, and then you use it and you pay off in full at the end of the month. Now what's interesting for me is, I tend to think of your credit worthiness as a bit like a bank account, in that you have a certain amount in and you have to decide what you're going to spend it on. Now, one application on your file in your position is neither going to be hither nor thither. If the only thing you want credit for is so you can spend more cheaply abroad, you've got a 10% chance. Apply for Aqua.
Okay.
I'm not saying you'll get Aqua, but we know you won't definitely be rejected. Then once you've got Aqua, because it's Aqua Reward that you're looking at, that also gives you 0.5% cash back here.
Right.
And then what I would do is I'd be spending 50 to 100 quid a month. I'm not telling you to spend more. You're a savvy man, I can tell.
No, I've never been in debt.
Fine. So you're going to spend 50 to 100 quid a month on it, paid off in full, do your normal shopping that you would do on it. That will rehabilitate your credit score in its own right, and then you can use it for going abroad. So I would certainly take a hit of trying to apply for Aqua. But what's the point of having a credit score if you're not going to use it? So let's apply and see.
Okay.
So work out what you want to spend your credit score on. If, say, you're about to get a cheap mortgage, you'd want to do that before anything else. Let's cross our fingers. Oh, I hope this works for you, but there's not much to lose if it says no. That's my biggest point, I think.
Yep.
Please wait while we make our decision. Oh. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Oh, I'm so... See, 10% doesn't mean you won't. It means 1 in 10 people in your position will. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the 1 in 10. Round of applause. So, cheap spending abroad and cash back here, and that'll help rebuild your credit score.
Perfect.
I have to give you a hug, I think. That's brilliant. I'm really excited. We've done that. I don't need to do it anymore. Go over there and sort it out.
Thank you.
Oh, that's really exciting. I know this is a bit pathetic, but I'm actually quite emotional about someone just getting a credit card. It's weird, isn't it? But that is opening a door to a much greater financial freedom going forward. That's great news.
I love how you got emotional over a credit card.
This, for me, isn't about debt. This is about him rejoining the financial citizenry, if you like, being able to do what other people can do, and that's important. Other tips for boosting your credit file: never miss or be late making payments. Evidence of stability is good, so use a landline number, not a mobile phone number, on applications. Consistency counts too, so if you're making a couple of applications, put the same number down and the same job title. Don't vary, or you could be knocked out for fraud scoring. Never get payday loans. They kill future applications, and withdrawing cash on credit cards isn't good either.
Right, quickfire Q&A.
Okay.
Lenny says, I want to switch bank accounts, but I'm worried it might impact me getting a mortgage later in the year.
Later in the year, you're probably fine. If it were within 3 months, I wouldn't do it, but later in the year and 1 application is probably okay.
OK, John says, does opting out of the electoral roll open register affect your score?
Not at all. It just means you won't get any marketing. Doesn't affect your credit score.
Now, Pete applied for a 6-month 0% poor credit balance transfer, which only has a £250 limit. What use is that to him, and should he get rid of it?
Well, the application's already on your file, so use it to cut a bit of cost and then apply elsewhere using an eligibility calculator to see who's most likely to accept you.
Caroline says, Martin, thank you. I've sorted my file, and after 2 years of high interest loans, I've cut my interest from £160 a month to £40.
Oh, lovely. That shows you how important managing your credit score is. That's it for this week. Next week, it's Help to Buy ISAs versus Lifetime ISAs for first-time buyers. If you've got questions on that or anything from this show, I'll be online afterwards.
How's that?
Bye-bye.